When selling your business to a strategic acquirer, that being a larger operating company in the same or an adjacent field, think a big company that's doing things on a much bigger scale, when trying to sell your business to them, your EBITDA or your profit or your revenue is really only one variable of three key variables that they are going to look at to determine if they want you or not. And candidly, it's the latter two variables that will be the biggest differentiators or determinants of that. And what are these two variables? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. I'm Arthur Petropoulos, the Managing Partner and President here at Hillview Partners. We're a middle market investment banking firm selling companies across all industries, oftentimes, many times, to strategic acquirers. And we've done it so many times, 100 plus transactions, $1 billion plus worth of transaction value, that we guarantee we will have offers for any company we take to market within 100 days. So to today's topic, what are these other two variables that make a large strategic acquirer want to buy a business or not? Well, first off, let's talk about the three variables. So the first variable is fundamentals, as we've discussed. That's EBITDA, that's revenue. And for a large strategic acquirer, and we talk to Fortune 500 companies every day about things they are buying, things they want to buy. For them to buy something that's purely just kind of a numbers grab, I mean, a lot of times your business has to be doing $100 million worth of revenue. That being said, if you have these two other variables, one of them or the other, or sometimes both, revenues for your company could be as low as $3, $4, $5 million, but if it solves this thing for the large strategic acquirer, they will still buy it. And oftentimes, when a strategic wants to buy something, they will pay a premium versus kind of traditional private equity or situations. So variable number one is access. And what we mean by access is, think about your business. What industry does it focus in terms of who it's selling its product, service, or offering to? Is there a specific geography? Is there a specific demographic, age group, cultural purchaser, place or that people are buying things from? That is an access point. And so if you are selling pharmaceutical services into Boston, if you are selling entertainment-related services into Hollywood, if you are selling oil and gas services in Texas, think of that as a geographical access point and an industrial access point. But in every business, for the most part, even if they start off as somewhat industry agnostic, there's usually a specialized access point in terms of who they serve. So think industry, geography, demographic. Look into those things, and that's usually a good indicator. So if a large company is providing the same service, and they are providing it to different geographies, but they don't provide it to yours, or if they're providing it to different people that are not your end market or to different industries, that's an access point that a strategic will want. For example, from a kind of a case study of our own, there was a company that provided certain services into the pharmaceutical space. They had a long hold of 50, 60 plus years in the New England pharmaceutical market, which, as you imagine, from Boston and surrounding Cambridge and areas like that, has quite a presence in the pharmaceutical realm. So there was another company that was a national service provider doing this in Minneapolis, Cleveland, Chicago, Florida, New York, really had all of the other markets, but it always had a challenging time of accessing the Boston market because Boston is a difficult to penetrate market given it has a lot of long-standing relationships. Therefore, it was far easier for this large company to buy the access via the acquisition of this 60-year-old company than go out and try to build it itself over and over again and either fail or just go through a long, long, long slog. You cannot recreate a brand and relationships like that, no matter how much money you make. No matter how much money you deploy into it. Therefore, they paid a premium to have access to a market. The fundamentals of the business were sound, but this party wanted it because it solved a missing puzzle piece of access. The second of this subset of variables for strategics are really the third variable. So if the first is kind of the fundamentals of the business, the revenue, the EBITDA. Now the second, if we think of what are the two special things that strategics are particularly looking for, first being access, second of these is capabilities. Do you provide a service or offering that someone else needs, wants, and again would rather, this is kind of the special phrasing you'll always hear, would rather buy it versus build it. So a modern example or extremely current example of this is AI capabilities. So you have gigantic, again, think Fortune 500 companies that have gigantic machines of businesses that they do, whether it's data related, services related, product related, logistics, I mean, it can be anything. But these gigantic companies are figuring out, how do we implement AI into what we do? If there's a specialty AI company in their particular vertical, in manufacturing, in distribution, in B2B services, in healthcare, that's already, let's call it, implementing these solutions into workflows for other companies, then all of a sudden, if they could acquire this, they could take this capability and spread it across all of their customers. So think of Athena Health as a company that we've worked with on several occasions, and their strategy is fairly out there. None of this is secret information, but Athena Health sells services and offerings into tons and tons and tons of kind of healthcare end users, from hospitals, doctors, all these things. And so what they've been tremendously good at is buying capabilities. They will buy a service or offering and then sell it to all of the thousands and thousands and thousands of customers that they have. They don't need to invent things. If you think about the ecosystem of the world, of business world, you have inventors and you have distribution channels. So you have Walmart, I'm sure it is to some degree, but they're not inventing the things they're selling there. They are just saying, hey, this looks good, let's sell it in our stores. And you can think of most businesses this way. And split the world. The really big people tend to have tremendously good distribution. They have sales channels, sales teams. They have access to the decision makers at their customers. Most small companies are usually good at inventing. They thought of a new way to do something. They're nimble, they can move quickly, they're innovative, they have low overhead. And so if you think of the large companies as really, really good distribution machines, and a lot of times ideas get created and there's plenty of innovation there, but they're always kind of looking around for who has these capabilities that we can just acquire, that we can bring into things. I mean, go read up about what the big social media companies are doing and how many things that they've bought, or any of their kind of AI pursuits in terms of OpenAI or Google or Microsoft, Meta, whoever, right? But the idea is they're traversing the world for capabilities. And so if you are a company and you say, how do I get the absolute premium when I want to sell my business? One very, very important avenue to explore is that of strategic acquirers, because they are looking for access and they are looking for capabilities that they would prefer, in many instances, to buy instead of build themselves, and for that they will pay a premium. And therefore, if you are selecting an investment bank to represent you, you need an investment bank that has tremendous access to the strategics, because anyone can just throw spaghetti against the wall to 500 private equity firms, 5,000 private equity firms and say, hey, do you like this? The fundamentals are pretty good. It makes this much profit. Maybe you'd pay X times the EBITDA. That'd give you a good return. But you're just talking about fundamentals. If you have access, if you have capabilities, then you should want to get paid for them. And in many situations, a strategic acquirer is going to be the best person for that. Now, there's a lot of nuance here. There are private equity firms that have existing platforms to which your company could be a strategic acquisition. So sometimes you're selling to a pure strategic, think a big independent publicly traded company, or somewhat more nuanced, you're selling to a larger strategic company that happens to be backed by private equity. And in some situations, if private equity wants you to be the platform for future aggregation, if a family office wants to buy it, then they will pay a premium as well. However, to keep everybody in the process honest, if you can get the best offers, so if you can go to a strategic and get a bid, if you will, if you get an offer, just to give you some inside baseball into what we do, if you get an offer from a strategic that contemplates some value being attributed to the access or the capability points, then when you go back to people that might be buying it more as generalists, more as starting a portfolio company with it, then that premium is going to apply to them too. Right? You might not use it for all of the same stuff that someone else does, but you still have to, the price is the price. Right? You could buy a Ferrari just to drive 30 miles an hour down the street to drink Starbucks coffee, but you're still paying for the fact that it can go 200 miles an hour, which someone else may value. So business is not that different. And that is a key element of selling companies to strategic businesses, and why it's important, even if you ultimately did not sell to a strategic acquirer. But that's the idea for today. If you want to sell your company to a strategic acquirer, if you want to sell your company to a bigger company, then don't just think about the numbers. Think about the access. Think about the capabilities. Why are you special? What makes it different? Why would someone rather buy it than build it? What pain does it solve? What missing puzzle piece does it fill? Hope the week continues to go well for everyone. Keep pushing forward. God bless. And we'll see everyone next time.